Okay, here we are again. So corporate advertising. So we were just looking at the grunge design and how it influenced several things, including typography. And also we were looking at vernacular sources, right? So we are now going to corporations and how they adopted this design. So not everybody, not every corporation does, of course, but there are some that do. And so we're going to focus on Urban Outfitters as a great example. First of all, in 1994, this is what Urban Outfitters released as publicity. And it's a very interesting piece of graphic design because it is just like campy, right? I mean, it is, you could even, I wouldn't call it kitschy, but definitely it has this simple look to it that is, very innocent almost, you could say. It looks like an ad and like a very, again, homey ad from the 1950s or so, right? And that's intentional, of course. It does break the expectations for a corporation, for clothing for teenagers, in every way. First of all, it uses different type, right? Actually, it's nothing too crazy here or very difficult to read at all, but it is precisely the opposite. It's very, very simple, all right? Very straightforward. So we have like slab serifs here and, more slab serifs around, and then a few sans serifs, wise buys, right? It tells you all the things about saving money, which we know this is not what this brand is about. Suspenders. I mean, it's selling things that are very interesting. One thing that I noticed, however, is that it is organized according to what eventually, and by now, has become the standard design, especially in web design, which is, again, this asymmetrical orthogonal design, which, of course, comes from, if not directly, I mean, it's definitely a strong influence from Mondrian, right? The artist that we discussed a few weeks ago. So Mondrian, all of his works are designed in this way. They have an asymmetrical balance, but at the same time, they have verticals and horizontals. So they create a grid, right? And you might remember that when we looked at Chihold, the new typography, he also advocated for a kind of asymmetrical design where the images would be placed on the sides and at the top and bottom to balance each other, and then the text would be placed in between, right? So this is a similar situation. I'm sorry, I've been working all week. At any rate, this we have that, right? So that aspect of, let's say, international style design. And then at the same time, we have the organization of the design and the general appearance of it really recalls these 19th century posters in which we have different things that do not necessarily go together with each other, you could say. So that is where they start. But what is most interesting to me is really where they are heading. So I did notice a few things after looking at several ads, and then we're going to look at this website. Urban Outfitters, at least from what is possible to see here, does not appear to have a corporate logo, right? They change their appearance, and that is part of their the way they promote themselves, as we will see in this link. Each store is either in a mall, right? In which case they try apparently to take up a store where there was a prior store, right? So it's not that they build for a new store, at least that's what they say. And then if they are in the city, they look for a renovated building, right? Or they look for an old building and they renovate the building. And the whole idea with that is that each store will be different. from other stores. The clothes they sell, of course, are the same, but ultimately they present themselves as kind of a unique experience for young people, right? And you can see the ads here. They are all very, very different. Presumably they might, I don't have the dates for them. I just grabbed them from the internet, but nevertheless, they come from different sources, but it's remarkable how different they are from each other in their style, right? So what we are going to look at is this document because it recalls very clearly the grunge design that we were discussing before. This is an analysis. It's not I mean, it includes advertising in it, but it's primarily an analysis of the company, right? And, you know, we are looking at this woman wearing this strange clothing and tennis shoes. The U and the O are casting a pretty thick shadow. They, you know, have a three-dimensionality. Then the type at the bottom is much more. Oh, I can't. The mouse is not showing up. Huh. Okay. Wait. Sorry about that. I need to be able to see this. Okay. Let's try again. There we go. Okay. So the second font is, again, looks like it was written with a pen, right? And without a lot of care. In terms of the photographs, we have that overlapping of photographs, transparencies, right? Filters, they really are not looking sharp. We do have this texture in here with like a little grid. So everything has this appearance of something with a lot of overlaying, right? And it is typical of that idea. So here we have, it's essentially an article that tells us about the executive summary, right, with photographs and type. Look at this. This is a whole block of text, all written in capital letters. The letters are very close to each other. It is difficult to read, all right? I actually tried. I got bored and I got tired because, again, I have a limit essentially. So it's very interesting that this is a piece of information, presumably maybe for their investors or for the employees themselves, who knows? But it is very, very difficult because it is a solid block of text, and again, the white space between the letters is really minimal. So again, it really does read like scriptio continua. All right. Executive summary, and we have a model there. So we go to other pages, same thing, right? Historical context is very interesting to read if you can actually get to it. Urban ink, so the A is missing, presumably implied by the shape of the N in here. So again, here's where we see we had a different logo and now we have something else, right? Writing. Again, clearly all of this is intentional and it's intending to give a certain appearance and mood to it. The clothing and the models, I'm not going to comment, but just the graphic design. We have these boxes with text, right? And then some boxes appear empty. So clearly the influence of David Carson is in here. We don't really have enough contrast, right? In color contrast for the letters, and everything continues to be uppercase. Sometimes the spaces between the words are huge and sometimes they are really compressed, right? So again, that we know that when setting type, that is, both situations are bad, right? There needs to be a balance. So that also impedes legibility. And again, we are looking here at an useful piece of information. All right, this is not just made to look pretty, it is meant to be read, presumably. So that's why it's explaining to us that this is in renovated buildings and each of them is unique. Then it tells us about the consumers. This is slightly more organized, right? Because we're comparing male and female. The male and the female don't look so completely different from each other. So again, that idea of an androgynous target audience, you could say, is clearly in here as well. It is interesting to read. The target audience is 18 to 24, so college age students, just like you. And then they describe the typical, right? But again, the contrast is minimal. It's difficult to read. There's a little bit more white space in here, and it makes a little bit more sense, but it's very interesting. All right, so again, here it continues, right? So the same concept throughout the document. Very, very blocks of text that are almost too blocky, right? The photographs, it's a matter of taste in a way. What they seem to show these models again that appear to be lost somehow. So it's telling us about the SWOT analysis, as always, marketing issues. Photographs, again, the style, not, cutting off the faces or hiding them. Some graphs, right? The graphs are perhaps somewhat more legible. They're a little bit more legible in general. All right, market position. All right, so you can take a look at this. I personally enjoyed thinking about it and reading about it. I do not necessarily think this is effective, but it's interesting for sure. And definitely it has a personality to it, right? As a piece of graphic design, it really, if anything, what it communicates is the attitude of this company to itself, right? To present itself as something, with lots of layers, with different meanings that change, that is not established. It's not a solid brand or corporate identity, because again, it seems to change depending on the place, right? Market trends. It looks cool, I guess, some of the pages, but again, this is just not really easy to read. So clearly competing or going against readability. And again, I'm going to let you finish with this on your own. It is interesting and fun, but we don't want to overdo it. So it's there linked in the PowerPoint. All right. So now I'm going to have to get out, close it, and be back. Okay. So that's Urbanoid Theater. So what we can see here is an application of this counterculture kind of grunge approach to a corporation, right? That is trying to define itself. And again, it seems to be working because this is a very successful business. So definitely, young people, at least the target audience, as they say, if they respond to this very clearly. Magazine covers is another area where, in some, right? I mean, let's not get, some continue to be very playful, but not nearly to this extreme. But there is one in France called Dedicate, and this particular cover created, it's very original. I created an, if not an uproar, at least a reaction. It's clearly inspired by, at least in terms of attitude, by Carson's Reagan, right? So here you have, in Reagan is a magazine that I showed you at the beginning of the first section of the lecture. This is Andy Warhol, not surprisingly. And here we have two covers, right, from Reagan. And they clearly display all the characteristics that we discussed before, the overprinting, the blurry photo, the kind of, nothing is truly aligned. We have some things that are utterly difficult to see, etc., etc. And this one, the photo is upside down, right? It's sometimes one thing to put text upside down, but to put the photo, the cover photo upside down seems really pushing it. Well, anyway, clearly this French approach from 2003 is emulating that, right? So what we see is a model, a woman that is incidentally not white, right? And she appears to be Asian, and her hair seems to be blowing in the wind, and there seems to be a hairdresser behind her, like grabbing her hair. So clearly these two photographs have been, it's a collage, right? I mean, they've been juxtaposed to each other. And then what is somewhat disturbing is this the face has been changed, right? So this is obscured here, and it looks like she's been hit, distorted, deformed. It's really hard to say. The background has different colors, as you can see, like almost like different filters have been passed through the different parts of the photo. There seems to be an after image in here. And of course, the title of the magazine actually runs on top of the face of the model, right? So just for the sake of comparison, we have from 1939 and 1949, this kind of classic, especially the 17 one, classic designs now, again, in which the model is always looking, they're looking pretty and in a pose that makes her look more seductive and charming, presumably. And that was something that, American magazines and presumably most European magazines as well continue to do. But if you wanted to show or make a statement about your position in the design world, then Benjamin Savignac has clearly found a way, right? Not imitating per se the style of Carson, which has been imitated quite a lot, the style itself, but rather imitating the attitude, right? Imitating this kind of dismissive attitude towards the international style and now established principles of design that we see. All right, so now we're looking at typography in products, and we're looking at the one product. The product is a sneaker, right? And sneakers have become, overpriced over time. But besides that, they have become iconic. I'm only learning about this new cultural thing, but it's very, very interesting from a cultural point of view. But anyway, I'm just learning. But I will tell you that John Maeda created a shoe for Reebok called the Emoretion, and he essentially painted it pink and black. And it is a shoe that has this, it appears like, spray paint in the way it's probably not spray paint, but it looks like spray paint in my opinion, right? Because the edges seem to be very hazy, right? And some of the colors are less defined than others. So, I mean, it really looks like spray paint. And again, the colors are typical spray paint, right? Very, very bright. Well, at any rate, the important thing about this shoe is that the colors are hot pink, right? And, we often associate hot pink with, I don't know, girls, young girls, like younger than, not a woman necessarily, but a young girl. And so, this is a color that we associate, if not with childhood, with, somebody who is not, let's say, in the corporate world, who doesn't have a job where they have to wear a suit and tie or a dress or something that has to fit a certain dress code, right? And so we know that now a lot of people wear sneakers to work, and some of them are very unique, right? So, such as this one. So that's what it is. But the thing that makes this more unique is that it has letters, and they are hard to see, but they are actually like stamped in there, right? It's actual symbols and text. And the inside, the same thing. There are letters everywhere that he put, like texture almost, but it's actually text, and it has a meaning. You can read it if you have the shoe. And so, and his name appears in there as well. So the designer collaborates, I guess, for lack of a better word, with a brand name, standard brand name of shoe, and creates something unique, because this was not a shoe released for the masses, you could say. It was an exclusive shoe, sold obviously in numbers, right? Not just one or two, but sold in numbers, but nevertheless an exclusive shoe that was designed really to make Reebok look more, sophisticated. So it really, a designer and Reebok collaborate and partner in this pursuit of designing something quite unique for an elite group, probably very expensive shoe. And he puts typography in it, right? In addition to the colors and all that. And then, of course, the photography of it is rather, it really looks like a work of art, right? Because of this, it casts a shadow. It seems to be floating. I mean, not floating, but it seems to be, it's photographed in a way like we photograph works of art on pedestals, right? On the white cube, or sometimes in a colored cube. So that is really, again, putting the shoe, and again, shoes have always been considered somewhat unique, but I think that, this is a sports shoe. And so it is no longer a sports shoe, it is now a fashion shoe as a result of this. Now, one interesting thing is that Maeda included, he wrote a book in 2006, which was very successful. Apparently, it's the most influential, so you should read it, book of the recent years in graphic design. And it's short, it's 100 pages, and he talks about laws of simplicity. And there are, if I remember correctly, I read a summary, there are 10 laws, and law number 7 is more emotions are better than less. Okay, so this is very general. Of course, he elaborates, right? But more emotions are better than less. And what does this mean? It means that you should let your emotions into your design. If you think about the international style, they really did not care about emotion. They are thinking about efficiency. They are thinking about communicating a message in a way that is where the typography, for example, or even the design is not visible, does not call attention to itself. And the emotion or the opinion, for that matter, of the graphic designer is irrelevant. The graphic designer for the international style is supposed to be just doing what they are asked to do in an efficient way, right? With ideas that are original but following certain rules. Well, now Maeda says, well, no, more emotions are better than less. So don't suppress your emotions. That's what he's saying when you are designing. In other words, this brings the status of the artist to graphic, and in this case, product design, right? The graphic designer almost like recovers, you could even say, that status of an artist that he or she had lost during the international style and the constructivist movement, where the graphic designer was seen as a producer, right? As somebody that designed for society, right? That did something for the good of others, either in a communist country like the Soviet Union, or in a capitalist country working for companies. But now Maeda is saying, well, no, the graphic designer, does all those things, but if you let your emotions enter into the equation, that's okay, right? And so he says, when emotions, is a quote, when emotions are considered above everything else, don't be afraid to add more ornament or layers of meaning, right? Don't be afraid to add ornament. That's what he's saying. Again, something that goes against the international style, in which ornament, form follows function, right? So ornament is there for the sake of the functionality of the object or the functionality of the design. If it doesn't serve a purpose, or if it's not incorporated into the function of the design, ornament is superfluous. And what Maeda is saying is, well, if you feel like it, essentially, that's what he's saying, right? If you feel like it, if it convinces you, then go for it, right? So it's a completely different approach to design. Now, next thing we have, and this is, I'm adding this, the next couple of sections are mine, right? What I'm saying is I didn't get them from the textbook, because I really think I am fascinated, literally, with the phenomenon of graphic t-shirts, or tees, as they are called sometimes. First of all, the incredible abundance and variety of them, and what is their purpose, right? It's something quite foreign to me in every way. You'll never see me wearing one, first of all. And again, I don't think anything of them, but I don't connect with this kind of attitude, so that's why. But I find it fascinating as a phenomenon. I think graphic tees are meant to express individuality and the point of view. Yes, there were the corporate t-shirts that have the brand names, right? And I think people wear those too to kind of show that they can afford a certain brand. But I'm talking about the other phenomenon, which is this one. It's more of going to buy a t-shirt because you feel identified with whatever design or message is being communicated, right? So here we have Los Angeles Lakers, right? Basketball, and again, it's a very nice t-shirt. But again, it has that playful design. The type has shadow, it kind of goes in a circle like that, right? It's interesting because the movement of your eyes are going to have to make a loop, and then the ball is in the middle, but it's not as obvious because it's gray. So again, the composition is very interesting. And then of course we have all of these, right, that are on the one hand more standard because the general arrangement is the same. We have the letters, the image, and then something else at the bottom. But we can see that they all look, they all are responding to the grunge in a way. They all look, perhaps are connected with bands or with science fiction. That's another thing. Or making a statement of some kind. This one has black letter. And in this particular photo that I have here, they are black, but they're not really black, right? They are this kind of bleached black, you could say. It's like an uneven color. So again, that grunge feel to them. That doesn't mean that they are all like this. Here we have these very kind of hip shirts, right? Where again, we're using materials. So Sleigh All Day, clearly about Christmas. So it's a red shirt and it has gold or silver, kind of hard to tell. I think it's gold, maybe sequin on it. So again, the material in which is embroidered then will also carry a meaning because it's about Christmas, right? And it's very cute, but again, it makes a statement, right? It's telling you, hey, I love Christmas. I can buy presents, whatever. This one is my favorite. I'm in terms of it makes me laugh. Friends over followers, right? But probably the picture was meant to be on Instagram, so it's almost like an irony of it. Nevertheless, it's the phenomenon of it that is so interesting. The fact that typography is finding a way into clothing, right? Or this is not new, by the way, but it is a phenomenon nevertheless. And by the way, I'll tell you that I was in Europe over the summer, and it is incredible that in Europe people don't wear graphic t-shirts. So I was very surprised. The clothes tend to be much flat, right? I mean, they might have a pattern, but they don't necessarily have graphics on them. So I think this is really an American phenomenon, and from what I have been able to observe, or at least it started in the US, it's probably expanded. But anyway, the use of letters, and the letters are all different, and the general appearance, at least in a lot of t-shirts, is this sort of grunge design. Definitely, they don't follow the international style. Next thing is tattoos. Right? I mean, we see letters in tattoos. It's not the only thing we see, but the words predominate in tattoo art, right? And this is actually called, indeed, tattoo lettering. These are covers of books. So this is a tattooed person, obviously. But here we have, these are two books that are available on Amazon, by the way. Volume 1, tattoo lettering reference book. And then the volume 2, the same thing, right? And they clarify here black letter calligraphy, West Coast, and I can't read it, so I need to flourishes. All right, so black letter calligraphy, West Coast, and flourishes. So this tells you again what the style of tattoo art tends to be like, right? I mean, I think there is a great predominance of tattoos that use black letter. So that is, to me, very interesting as well. Black letter, which began in the Middle Ages, associated with Germany, eventually became associated with German nationalism, and even with the Nazis on some level, but not entirely, but nationalism as a whole. And of course, you know, the Carolingian minuscule and then the Roman letters essentially were the opposite of that, right? But black letter has come back since when, I'm not entirely sure, but has come back perhaps in these forms of, I guess we can call it on some level counterculture, right? Because tattooing your body, unless you do it very mildly, is still a form of defiance to the conventions of society. Many, many more people have tattoos than not, perhaps, but nevertheless, it's still something that, especially if it's so widespread, right, that is associated with a kind of defiant attitude to society. So here we have, for example, this is grunge, right? This little tail that we see here. It's not the Elliot Earl's blue eyeshadow, but it's nevertheless clearly using that, right? So it's using that. And just to show you again, the Chicano Latino, which is what I study, tattoos tend to, again, use a lot of swirling and grunge looking, a lot of ornament, right? And here we have this black letter inspired, right? So it isn't black letter like the medieval, original medieval, but it looks like black letter and it has that general stylistic appearance. It's an adaptation mixed up without much prejudice with other forms that are more like grunge, right? So, and cursive, so black letter, grunge, and cursive, which are of course all make legibility more difficult and bring up the ornament that we were talking about. Okay, now this is funny. Apparently somebody decided to just go against the grain and carve and tattoo himself with Helvetica, right? So this was done for the first time in 2009. After that, other people have done it too, but there are a few that have decided that in order to make a statement in tattoo form, they will reply to these people, right? They will reply to these people by saying, I love Helvetica, right? So this is just funny. Anyway, now finally we have do it yourself. All right. So here is the thing. A lot more people are making graphic design. Some of them without going to college for it or going to technical school for it. Why is that? Well, because technology allows it, right? Because there are YouTube videos to learn from, or simply the programs, not all of them, of course, but some of them at least are not that difficult to use. In other words, you have to spend time learning, but that in itself is very rewarding because it is challenging. And so you're like, oh, I'm going to learn to do something. And so you do, right? And that is very satisfying. It gives human beings a sense of power. So technology, homemade craft, and everyday design have taken over, right? And I am sure that all of you, or most of you who are in graphic design, and those of you who are not as well, they've done some before. You probably learned graphic design, at least in part, before you took your introduction to computer graphics. You know, it's you grew up with technology, so it is natural that this will come natural to you. And of course, the programs that are available make it relatively easy. So here's the thing, this has taken over as well. We have an artist called Leah Bell. These are posters for shows, right? They're like concerts, and look at them, right? I'm talking about the three. They are very human-like. They are very cute. They are very homemade. These are actually not made with technology. She uses traditional craftsmanship to make them. So she just hand draws the letters and draws the figures. But they look nothing like corporate approach to design, right? They do give you the information, but you kind of have to find it. It's not so easy. So Sige, Sputnik, right? Wade, Greenhouse, Mechanical, Cabaret, Procard, etc. And so again, it's not quite as clear as, let's say, a corporate design, right? In which you, or a traditional one at least, in which you have the important information with larger letters and good amount of white space to make a difference, etc. But they connect with the audience because they look like real people, right? They look like a young lady who is going to go to a concert and is perhaps imagining herself as if she's going to go. In this case, we have two young ladies that are connecting with each other, right? In whatever situation. And this presumably is a guy with a mechanical arm, right? This is weird, but I like the hella here. So that's why I chose this one. Again, you have the date, you have the place. It's at Kirby Court. It tells you the price. It tells you all the information, but it's not in a traditional design. It's still very cool. And just for the sake of contrast, right? This is a rock band that I am not familiar with, but I wanted an example of a rock band a poster. So this is from 2022, and nevertheless, you can see the type that they have chosen, right? That is not necessarily grunge, and it's not necessarily black letter, but it has certain similarities, like the triangular endings here. That is the shape of black letter, right? And then this looks like ripped paper, so a little bit like the grunge appearance of the early posters that we looked at, right? And even the photograph looks like it's ripped paper or a ripped photograph, and the photograph itself is has a red filter, and the figures are there and they are distinct, but they are not really clear. Okay, so again, this is more commercial, this is not as commercial, but they clearly have both taken elements of these styles and of this attitude to design, in which the expression of the designer and the emotion of the designer is more important than perhaps the message they want to communicate. Okay. And to finish up, I will show you my own little creations that I posted a few of these on Instagram, but I made this in the summer because I just felt like doing them. All right. So again, a kind of entertaining thing, you could say. And again, it's something that, I felt empowered, you could even say, right? Because I was doing something creative and it satisfied me and I could show it to someone. I thought they were pretty good and they were not that difficult to make. So you might have seen this, but take a look at that. So that was one. And again, this is essentially just, nobody taught me how to do this. I felt happy that I could teach it to myself, that kind of satisfaction that is provided by, you could say, technology, right? Something that it allows you to experiment, and you do it and you can produce something and you can feel, if not proud, at least satisfied with it. So this is the second one. And so this is where we get to participate, right, with the contemporary designs that are all around us. So with that, I will bid you adieu for today. And what do I need to tell you? Nothing. I will grade as much as I can as soon as possible. And we do have, of course, our last exam in the last, it's on the Monday of finals week, right? So we have one lecture left. You have one post this week, and then you have your video that you need to do next week, and then the final, and all of that. All right. Remember, if you are behind with anything, in other words, you haven't submitted something, you have a chance to do it, but please do it before the end of the semester. And you can only do Unit 3, right? If you missed something for Unit 1 or Unit 2, it's too late. But if you want to if you haven't completed something for Unit 3 and you want to complete that before the day of the test, please do that. All right. Okay. Have a great rest of your night.